Welcome to another episode of Chat Sports. You don't know, my name's Chad. Take a dive into sports, and welcome to the Week 2 NFL recap review video. This past week, I go over my picks, how well I did, bring you some of the highlights of what happened this past weekend of action, including a thriller on Thursday night between the Chargers and Chiefs, and all the way to the doubleheader Monday Night Football action. And those were some wild games themselves. But before I dive at all that nonsense, if you could, go ahead and smash that thumbs up for me, especially like the content provider. Really pleases YouTube gods. Help promote this channel out. You can also subscribe. Love you guys review my work. I love you all for doing that. Not many of you subscribe. This costs you a time. Helps me provide more entertainment value for you. Now, last week, once again, did pretty poorly. Went 8-8. Went 500. I mean, it started off bad. It started off so bad that the early games, including Thursday, the Thursday only got two wins. It was the late games or the nightcaps, and that I was able to get up to the 8-8. Pull up the rallies as a few teams did this week. That really tanked this week's picks. But let's just go off and start off with the showdown. I was in Kansas City on Amazon Prime. That's right. Amazon has now won the contract to air Thursday night matchups. So they have a little show, a few more games like that. Wasn't anything really to shake at in terms of broadcast-wise. But it is their first game, so I'll give them a little leeway on that one. We'll see how the rest of the season progresses. But in terms of what happened on the field, this was what we all expected between these two. This is going to be a rivalry that will probably land them both in the Hall of Fame. Herbert had over 300 yards passing with three TDs and only one pick. Mahomes had 230 yards, over 230 yards passing with two TDs and no picks. It was, I think, more of the running attack by the Chiefs that really kind of helped alleviate a little bit the pressure the defense had. The Chiefs defense actually proved a little bit better getting to Herbert than the Chargers was towards getting Mahomes. Of course, that's Mahomes. He does Mahomes things that just make you scratch your head like, how that, okay. He's put the cheat codes in Madden, and there you go. But it's still the Chiefs' secondary is also kind of porous because they get beat up quite a bit. But their defensive front actually stepped up. And it wasn't a late drive that pretty much put this game away for the Chiefs. I really kind of enjoyed the showdown these two will always have, and expect the next game when it goes down in L.A. They'd be epic as well. Then we start kicking off with the other games, and these early Sunday matches was just not what I expected. We're going to start with the Giants and Panthers, and it just, I don't know. It's just, I think the Giants have a new life. McAdoo has just put in a new sense of that they can do it with what they have. Daniel Jones once again proved to be barely effective, but just enough to kind of get the team to lead them 19 points. McCaffrey was more of a function of the Panthers offense. He had over 100 yards rushing, but still didn't get the pay dirt. And Baker looks like the reason why Cleveland never did theirs so well either. Him getting sacked late, which kind of forced a punt because they were too far out to really make a substantial gain. And it was just the Giants defense did enough to keep Carolina down, edged out the Panthers 19-16 to go undefeated. They're right now 2-0. And who saw the G-men going that way? And we'll head down to Jacksonville, where the Jaguars playing host to the Colts. The Colts coming off of their tie in Houston. I I called for Jacksonville to beat Indianapolis. I told you that it was like last year when Indianapolis, they had to win at Jacksonville to get in the playoffs. Jacksonville went, no, we ain't having that. And I said the exact same thing. I think Jacksonville was starting to go in the right direction, and they seem to have the Colts numbers at home. So I saw this one coming, and was not disappointed. I was shocked at the outcome. A shutout by the Jags defense. And who knew Matt Ryan's career was tanked since going to Indianapolis, and he should have been a whole lot better with what he has there and what compared to what he had in Atlanta. So I don't know. I think it's just I don't think it's time yet to hit the panic button for any franchise yet. This is only week 2. But week 3 is definitely going to be some must wins for some teams to make sure they don't start tumbling in the wrong direction. And then one of the surprise games on the weekend, the Baltimore Ravens were up by 21 points in the fourth quarter and end up losing the game. Tua Tagovailoa tied a franchise record for 6 passing touchdowns. Guess who he's tied with? Greasy and Marino, 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks coming out of Miami. Greasy's the only one to win the Super Bowl. Marino got there, but never went back and never won. Marino is probably one of the all-time great quarterbacks ever. Tua just tied him with 6 passing touchdowns. I mean, it was Tyreek Hill, Waddle. I mean, it didn't matter. He was throwing both of them multiple times. It was just a clinic on how to come back. Dolphins defense stepped up in the fourth quarter, stifled Lamar Jackson, and they just couldn't put away the Dolphins. I mean, they had all their opportunities and never could do it, and that was it. And Miami pulled off one of the 3 comeback victories that happened this weekend. And Miami is now undefeated. Then we head over to Pittsburgh, and I don't know, I had more faith in Trubinsky than I did with Matt Jones. And it was, if it wasn't for a muff punt that hit the guy right in the face mask, that might be a different story. But, that led to a touchdown, and Matt Jones was more effective than Trubinsky. He couldn't throw bats more 10 yards. I don't know, it was a different defensive or offensive scheme for him this week. But he looked like the Trubinsky of old, the reason why he, was let go of Chicago. And they just couldn't do anything really to stifle a comeback. I mean, they get a touchdown late, 2-point conversion. They just couldn't get the onside kick to try to win it. And the Patriots held on to beat Pittsburgh 17-14, giving me another loss. And Cleveland and the Browns. What's to say about Cleveland? This is a franchise that has, since the original team left, I will always say that, even though technically this is the same franchise, it just had that that 3-year break. But if that original team left, this Cleveland is not that same Browns franchise at all. They're just horrible. They're kind of like how the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Seattle Seahawks were for many, many, many years when they first came in back in '77. A few bright spots here and there, and then they just kind of fade away. Cleveland had this. Chubb went in and scored a touchdown late in the fourth. You should, not done that, because you should have went down before you went in. But I get it. He wanted to get, the touchdown. That's what everyone wants. Then he makes an extra point, which is a rare thing-ish. But less than 2 minutes, the Jets came back and beat the Browns and ended up winning on a extra point, 31-30. Who would have saw that coming? Flacco looked like the Flacco of old in that time frame. He ended up over 300 yards passing, 4 touchdowns. It was just a clinic on what to do. Wilson was the primary target for Flacco and get over 100 yards with 2 TDs. It was shocking to see the Jets go into Cleveland and get that first victory of the year. But, the same Browns team. Doesn't matter who's in charge. But, yeah, that was definitely not what I expected. Then we went into New Orleans, where the Saints are playing host to the Buccaneers. And remember, since Tom Brady has been in Tampa, he's yet to win against the Saints. And it kind of looked that way for a huge portion of this game. It was a defensive showdown. Tampa Bay's defense is right now on the top of the world. I mean, and they gets the defense to beat. The offense is not quite gelling quite right. You saw that with Tom Brady. He got frustrated. He took it out on his helmet. Took it out on iPad, for lack of a better term. It's part of his Surface Pro. Knowing he contracted in the NFL. Checking that again. And him and Lattimore got a little shouting match. This is what Brady does. He starts stuff. I mean, that's just him. He starts jawing, and the other guy starts jawing back at him. I think he's trying to do is get underneath their skin and trying to entice, a penalty, because, get into the, quarterback's face. Brady knows quarterbacks are protected, so Mike Evans took exception to this. And he was off the field. He ran back on the field, pushed Lattimore. There's a nice, dog pile right there between the Bucs and Saints. Pretty much everyone else involved in a little scruff, ruckus there got fines. But Evans got the 1-game suspension. Brady's carrying foul, but Mike Evans is a repeat offender. Thus, the 1-game suspension. But that, I think, was the spark they needed. I mean, these guys were just chipping back and forth. James Winston was coming to Winston of old, gifting the game to the Bucs as the Bucs held on to win 20-10. Then we head to Detroit, where the Commanders came to town. Now, I called for Detroit to beat Philadelphia last week, and Philly came back to win that one. And I called for Detroit to win this game. The preseason why I had Detroit already be undefeated at the beginning of the season. They didn't disappoint this week, even though Washington made one heck of a comeback, scoring all their points in the second half. So they're trying their best to come back. Wentz had over 300 yards passing, 3 TDs. But the Browns were just enough. Hutchinson set the Lions single game rookie record for most sacks in the game with 3. And that was just enough. And the defense was just, just enough to kind of not let this game get too far out, or let the Washington get back in, should I say. Detroit held on to win 36-27. And one of my few highlights in that early set of games. Then we're going late afternoon games, and that's when you had the Falcons heading to the Rams. And this one I said, yeah, this is going to be Rams all day long. Pretty much was a step towards the end. That's when Atlanta started kicking in high gear, and they start coming from behind. So they try to do reverse psychology, because they're normally the ones with the big leads, and they coughed up towards the end. So they try to go, okay, we'll give them the points, and then we'll come back. But, Jalen Ramsey even had a incredible interception in the end zone that kind of took points away. And it was the defense of the Rams that actually stepped up to really hold on to the win. And they were able to hold on to beat Atlanta 31-27. Even though Atlanta was storming back with 17 points in the fourth quarter. But it wasn't enough, as the Rams now moved to 1-1. Then we head out to San Francisco, where fortunately Trey Lance ended up getting hurt, breaking a bone in his ankle. They required surgery, which was according to reports, very successful. So hopefully he can get back to some type of performance where he could try to get back to what he is expected to be. He's out for the season, so the guy Jimmy G took over. Good thing they held on to him, didn't it? But right now they got Jimmy G, the team, the guy that took to the 49ers to back-to-back NFC Championship games and a Super Bowl. So I think they're in good hands with Jimmy G, and then beating Seattle 27-7. And another amazing comeback out there in Las Vegas, and where the Cardinals came to town. I thought it was going to be Vegas all day long, just the way the Cardinals played last week against Kansas City. They didn't show up, and then they weren't there for the first half either. But something happened in that locker room. They were down 20-0. They didn't give up. Kyler Murray was running like 50 yards for a touchdown because he kept going back and forth directing receivers to get open, and they couldn't, and he ran it himself. In their 2-point play where he was running around, should have been sacked twice, avoided that through a 2-point conversion. So we went in overtime. Arizona first had the first possession, and they didn't score. So Vegas had it. There's a couple wild plays that happened. There's one where could have been a fumble that got recovered by the Raiders. The next play, fighting for extra yardage, hit right on that ball. Ball came out, skirted around, ran it back for a touchdown. The Cardinals came back to win this game. I mean, this is another one that they had them dead to rights. I mean, the Raiders were up 23-7. They had them, and Arizona came back and won this in overtime, 29-23. Send the Raiders 0-2. All right, next off we have the Big D where the Bengals came to town and the Dallas Cowboys. I thought we're done. I mean, I really did. I didn't think the offense would respond. Cooper Rush came in, and the whole offensive game plan changed, which I think is something they should have done beforehand. They went more rushing first. Get the Bengals all disoriented. It's like, oh, wait a minute, now they're going to rush it. And then Cooper Rush was making key plays in the passing attack. The Bengals defense had nothing to do. I mean, it took them a while to adjust because the Cowboys rallied 2 touchdowns in the first quarter. They couldn't score anything else afterwards because the defense finally adjusted enough. But that Bengals offensive line is about as strong as a wet paper bag. Joe Burrow once again ended up getting sacked like 6 times. He had no time. Even when he had the time, he was always anticipating a hit, so his passes were off. It was just a terrible showing all around. And even though the Bengals ended up coming back from behind, tying this game up at 17 apiece, they gave enough time for Cooper Rush to set up a game-winning field goal, and that was it. Dallas wins without Dak Prescott, 20-17. Then we head up to the Mile High City, where the Denver Broncos playing host to the Houston Texans. Houston, of course, tying Indianapolis in a weird way. Denver kind of having some good numbers against Seattle, but it, couldn't really connect a few plays. And it was a lackluster game for Denver once again. They couldn't really take advantage of the Houston defense at all. They couldn't really connect. I mean, it was just... Wilson had less passing yards against Houston than they did against Seattle. Something's just not right there with him. So I'm not sure if it's his chemistry with the teams, because there's some rumors that he has a different dynamic with teammates. Especially what came out of Seattle, where he has his own office, or I think he has it in Denver now, something like that. I mean, if that's the case, he's not bonding well with the team, which could end up hurting them in the long run. But they're able to finally get a touchdown in the fourth quarter, end up escaping against the Texans 16-9. But this is the team that needs to get gelled up pretty quick because this is a very tough division, and if they don't do that, they probably will find themselves outside looking in. And then Sunday night, the Bears are playing host to the Bears. The Packers are playing host against the Bears. And with Green Bay, I knew that they're going to bounce back against Minnesota. I knew they're going to lose against Minnesota. I knew they're going to bounce back against Chicago. But, it started out like maybe things are not going to go that direction because Green Bay's first possession gets field goal and Chicago ends up scoring a touchdown after their first possession. That's basically it for Chicago. Green Bay's defense stepped up. The offensive line for the Packers still not that good because Chicago got in there, got a couple good sacks, forced a couple fumbles. But it's just one of these things that Green Bay was just too much. They did a lot of running, which really helped them out. Aaron Jones ended up getting 132 yards on the ground. So that really helped out Aaron Rodgers a lot because now the Bears had to worry about the running attack. And then, he was able to pick apart with them with the passing he does. He's phenomenal. But he's always going with the guys that he knows. Watkins having like 93 yards. But yeah, Aaron Rodgers was just too much. He even had a TD to Lazard who actually came back. It was like 24-7 at the half, and that was it. The defense just took over the second half, and the Packers ended up beating the Bears 27-10. Very much to my dismay. Then last night, we were treated with a double shot of Monday Night Football. Two different crews calling it, either ESPN or ABC. And these games, we'll start off in Buffalo. That was a one-sided affair once again. The Bills put on a clinic. It was just, not anything you really that the Titans could really do because Allen and Diggs connected for 3 touchdowns. It was just a lopsided affair. Even the defense ended up getting a touchdown. They're like, wait a minute, we need to get in this game as well. They got in for a touchdown, which means they scored the same amount of touchdowns Tennessee did, 1, and it was a blowout in Buffalo, 41-7. I don't think that there is any doubt about the Bills' tenacity and ability to probably win this year. But there were some key injuries that did happen in Buffalo that will hamper them a little bit. With the fact that now they're beat the Super Bowl champions and the team that clinched number 1 seed last year in the AFC playoffs and completely dismantled them is just a testament of what could be that. But there was a serious injury that affected the Bills cornerback Dane Jackson, who hurt his neck in a horrific hit where his head and neck went back to look like the wrong direction. But he was taken out to the hospital for evaluation where they said he has a full movement of his limbs, which is a good sign. So that means, he didn't sever anything spinally, but they got to wait for some more tests to make sure what happens. I'm just hoping that the worst that happens for him is a broken neck. He's able to recover and get back on the field. That's just one of those things you just do not want. And as a friendly fire incident, and you hate to see that with this, but yeah, it was that was horrific. Especially seeing the ambulance on the field to transport him. So, good thing is he has feelings and movements in all his limbs and extremities, which is a key aspect, ensuring no nerve damage. But I'm not a doctor, so things could probably happen up later on. But hopefully he has a speedy recovery. And to close off this week, Philadelphia was playing host to Minnesota. And the way Minnesota looked like against Green Bay, it looked like it was going to be a one-sided affair because Philadelphia struggled against Detroit. But we see how Detroit handled Washington as well. I mean, but Slay was the answer to Jefferson. He pretty much shut him down. Kirk Cousins with the Kirk Cousins of old. He was giving gifts. His favorite receiver was Slay. The problem is, that's the wrong team. And Jalen Hurts just would not be denied. He had a rushing touchdowns, passing touchdown. I mean, he was the offense for the Philadelphia Eagles. It didn't matter. I mean, he can get you in the air and he get you on the ground. And Minnesota, towards the end, they were just playing so soft and getting this huge windows where these guys had. Once he caught the ball, he had another 5 extra yards before anyone else touched him. So I'm not sure what defensive scheme they're trying to play for the Vikings. But that's not it. You can't give receivers, especially with talent like that, room to maneuver and light you up like, having Hollywood Brown. I mean, you can't do that. But towards the end, the Philadelphia can score anymore, but I don't think they were really trying too much because Kirk Cousins just kept giving them gifts. Like, here, you have a touchdown. Or, you have an interception. You have an interception. No, we'll go back to you for an interception. Minnesota kind of laid the egg. I mean, they had that one good offensive series where they ended up scoring a touchdown, but after that, that was it. Minnesota just came out flat. Philadelphia won 24-7. And now the hot train begins with the Eagles. We'll see how that one lasts. But there you go. There's my picks. The recap. We end up going 8-8. Hopefully next week go a little bit better. And there are some serious contenders out there. I mean, Buffalo looks legit. Kansas City looks like a good contender in the AFC as well. Both teams are actually undefeated. Who thought the G-Men would be undefeated? That's a weird aspect to get at. Miami could be that game between Miami and Buffalo next week could be a very good standing. Not to mention the Eagles and Tampa Bay being undefeated. And Tampa Bay's got that defense. The offense, question mark, but that defense is on point. So it's our only time to tell how these games play out throughout the season. Only 5 teams are undefeated right now. We'll kind of see how things go from here. And who would have thought Jacksonville would be sitting on top of the AFC South? See how long that lasts. But hey, just let me know down below what you thought of last week's games. Which game impressed you the most? The most, excuse me. Which game, which collapse was the most shocking? While you're there, leave a comment. Make sure you hit that thumbs up once again. You can also share this video with friends and family. It helps promote this channel out. Once you subscribe, make sure you hit that bell notification. That's the next time I post any more content on my channel. And I will see you next time on Chat Sports Talk.